Quer ser feliz, andar tranquilamente na favela onde eu nasci. Se poder me orgulhar e ter a consciência que eu vou vir desse lugar. Se poder me orgulhar e ter a consciência que eu vou vir desse lugar. Quer ser feliz, andar tranquilamente na favela onde eu nasci. Se poder me orgulhar e ter a consciência que eu vou vir desse lugar. Quer ser feliz, andar tranquilamente na favela onde eu nasci. Se poder me orgulhar e ter a consciência que eu vou vir desse lugar.
Jon McCray.
Hey, I'm Jon McCray. I'm the DJ and one of the co-founders of Sluts Party Shy. This is episode 12 of Next Up, quency Noir. Let's get ready for the Center Sanctuary rave tonight.
What's up, y'all? I'm Mark. We're here at Burbon Division for tonight's Sluts Party Chai Center Sanctuary. We're here with quency Noir. This episode is gonna be unreal. I am the photographer for Sluts Party. I'm gonna be taking some photos tonight, getting a little content for the Instagram, for you know, just for the vibes, I got involved with Sluts Party about a year ago, actually. Almost close to a year, like 11 months. My partner Natalie introduced me. She's one of the co-founders of Sluts Party. And that kind of just, you know, started going to the parties. You know, I take photos, so it kind of just like melted together really nicely. But really excited for tonight. We're gonna have fun. We're gonna be safe. It's gonna be a good ass party. Yeah.
Evacuate. Hi, I'm Natalie, co-founder of Sluts Party, and tonight we are taking you on our journey of Center Sanctuary Coven. This is our third Center Sanctuary in Chicago. We're in a new venue, a lot is going on. We're gonna have the largest Center Sanctuary we've ever had, so it is going to be something new, but also really exciting, so yeah.
Jon McCray.
all about celebrating sexuality. And I think that kind of ties into what our name is you're not supposed to be ashamed of your sexuality or hide it. It's all about celebrating it and being a slut.
I know from like our very first meeting when we all got together and we came up with the name Sluts Party, we actually had like a little acronym for it as well, and it stood for Sexual Liberation United Together. And with that togetherness, there was that kind of inherent idea of it being this dance party where everyone could get together in like scandalous outfits and really liberate themselves, not only through their sexuality, but also in a big group of people that felt like unified, and we were all on the same page and just like dancing and moving our bodies together. And that's a big thing that like Jon puts a lot of historical content together for our page that centers around that concept and that idea and like the history behind music, liberation, dance, and kind of like bringing everyone together.
The reason why we chose the name is because it's reprehensible in our society. It's something you're supposed to be ashamed of, something that's supposed to be whispered. And the idea is just like you're fighting back against purity culture by reclaiming your sexuality. It's a way to fight back against purity culture by reclaiming the words used to enforce purity culture and make it your own. I guess the second question here is dance and movement and sexuality. And the reality is that that's always been a thing, from like ancient Greek to like parties in ancient China and India to South America to the Harlem Renaissance to blues clubs in the South, through the disco movement and like all the underground parties that led us to here. I think a lot of times as underground movements become more popular and mainstream, the things that society views disgusting or not worth it get washed out, whether it's the marginalized communities or the inherent sexuality involved in that. And like take disco, for example. The disco movement started off as gay men needing a space to hook up because the rest of society persecuted them for any type of male-on-male, man-on-man affection in public. So the disco movement took it underground and created their own style. And it was rooted around queer sexuality and overt touch and feeling, because that's what dance is. It's really hard to dance on your own. And as we're entering in an age where more and more stuff happens virtually through AI or Zoom, where you can work from home, you can play games from home, you can talk to your friends from home, dancing with somebody requires you to be there in person. It requires touch, it requires feelings, and all of that is innate to sexuality. It's flirting, it's touching, it's building up chemistry.
This is our spin-off party of one of our themed dance parties that we did back when we began. And it's basically like a sacrilegious themed event in here. And when we first began, we got a memo that the church was coming to protest us. And we had a whole performance where, you know, Jesus was portrayed, and we, you know, it was real slutty. That's all I'm gonna say.
I am the virgin sacrifice tonight. My girlfriend is gonna be sacrificing me. Hope to have some fun tonight. You know, see a lot of people, dance, enjoy the music. Excited. Sluts is always a good time.
Addicted to your touch, oh, I feel it rush.
And I think that like Sluts have done a really good job of like platforming and headlining queer and sex positive black men, which I think is a demographic that is vastly overlooked. I mean, shout out to the House of Cage Boys, who are a collection of black queer go-go performers who dress in very revealing wear, who is something that I think in your everyday America you're not allowed to see. Because again, like even when you look at, say, take something such as porn, there's really only one way that like black masculinity is portrayed, and it's fetishizing. It's a lot of times it's animalistic, it's oversized muscles, it's one demographic of how historical lens of how America viewed how black men are supposed to be, and that's how it's presented sexually. It's the underbelly of everything that's wrong with systemic racism. Whereas I think that Sluts has done a really good job of allowing black men to be fluid who come to our events. And I also think that there's a beautiful world where we see like black women are allowed to reclaim their sexuality. And like the presence of black trans people there is a really beautiful thing. And watching black people get to be fluid, black non-binariness, which is like a really cool thing. And seeing like black people explore and have autonomy over their sexuality and play with it and be fluid with it and their gender in a way that you don't see it in other places. And I think that goes back to our party, with our party's not a focus on any one gender, but more of fluidity, the concept of fluidity in general, going from gender fluidity to non-monogamy to sexual fluidity, and challenging the norms of how we expect people, but also blackness in specific, to show up.
From my perspective, well, this is something like Natalie and I pushed on Jon specifically too, to have more of a presence like on our social media, getting a little bit more involved in like doing talking videos, or I don't want to, exposing yourself is the wrong word, but just highlighting yourself as a queer black man, to create that layer of like, this is okay, this is normalize it, destigmatize it. I think also just the combination, like Jon touched on, us having really diverse DJs and like music talent, but we also look for that in like the go-go's that Natalie picks out, and just really working on like highlighting diverse queerness in like all of our kind of like performance aspects. I think it just like creates and like curates a vibe of this is safe, this is comfortable, and this is like normal at our party, and this is celebrated, and like our go-go's are up there having the time of their life, and it just creates the sense of like comfort and happiness around your queerness, particularly as a person of the black community or just any other sort of diverse community. And that's really like, it's something really special, and we've seen it like grow and grow over time. I feel like at first our parties did lean like a little white and they've really like over the past year like grown, especially our ecstasy party, I feel like is such a diverse party of just like everyone that you could imagine across the spectrum. And it's been really amazing.
I do want to jump back in and give like a special shout out to black trans men, because I think that in a world where black masculinity is demonized so much and black femininity is demonized so much, I think that like black trans people are really showing us how we can deconstruct gender norms and reconstruct them into whatever we want them to be in a way that challenges the status quo and like the idea of what we should do. And black trans men in specific, because they're able to create a form of masculinity that is not forced on them, but a way that they're able to decide what masculinity looks like to him and create that and present that out in the world. And I think that is like such a beautiful thing. And I think that is a guide for black cis men in general, whether you're straight, you're bi, or gay, the idea that we can pick and choose what parts of gender norms are gender affirming to us, and that doesn't invalidate our presence as black men. We can decide if we want to do X, Y, and Z, but not A, B, and C. And I think that freedom that black men can learn from black trans men should not be taken for granted.
I think when it comes to the intersection of blackness and queerness, kind of the issue I find that a lot of people who speak to me face is they're really pigeonholed into these boxes. You know, to be black, you have to be this. To be in the media while being black, you have to be this, and you have to fit into these neat little boxes, and you can't do X, Y, and Z that, you know, a white person in the media may get praised for doing. And I think it puts a very intense amount of pressure on people. And I think Sluts gives people the opportunity to be free of that pressure that they face in our outside society.
I think what makes Sluts really special is like the focus on bisexuality and pansexuality, because I think that there is an erasure. Not I think there is an erasure of the idea of black, bisexual, and pansexual man, and even like the concept of like down low has been a way to demonize black men who show any type of fluidity in their, who showcase any type of fluidity in their sexualization or their gender identity. And I think that just reinforces the worst traits in masculinity by saying that, like, hey, if you portray anything that seems fluid, we're going to ostracize and demonize those traits. So then you force black men in specific, but men in general, to constantly have to perform and portray hypermasculinity. So being able to see black men come to our parties in skirts and see them in more fluid outfits, people who don't identify as gay, people identify as bi, pan, straight, fluid, and see them be able to express more feminine traits in a place that not just doesn't stigmatizes it, but celebrates it, is really important. And recently we've been getting a lot of pushback about the idea of cis men being in our space. And like while we try to keep out and police cis men who come to our space with bad intentions, because the reality is cis men are the biggest perpetrators of sexual and physical violence. The reality is that, like, if we want to have better cis men in society, we need to give them spaces to express different forms of gender and be able to take off the layers of toxic masculinity. So as long as they're not openly misogynistic, homophobic, transphobic, biphobic, they understand consent. Yes, like cis men should be in this space. Because cis men also need spaces to explore themselves, because that's how you make better cis men.
Jon McCray.
Sinners is, it's for people. It's a space where if you're someone that you've been shamed for your sinner identity, shamed for being sex positive, shamed for being queer, shamed for being kinky, this is a space for you. It's a space to feel safe, to reclaim that identity, to understand that you belong, and nobody should make you feel bad for who you are. I grew up doing studio dance, and now I do go-go and pool. So it's been this very interesting journey going from forms of movement like ballet that are all based upon, you know, having correct form, having everything be perfect, and of course things are supposed to be very inherently not sexual in nature versus things like voguing and go-go. the biggest thing I want them to feel is freedom. And I think that's such a broad term, but specifically freedom from our society and what society puts on them and the weight that it puts on their shoulders. I still distinctly remember the first Sluts Party we hosted. It was Barbie Party, and you know, when I'm in a straight club, it's like if my partner John leaves for a second, all of a sudden I have creepy men coming up to me. Even in non-club settings, having to deal with harassment and things like that is something that really weighs on me. And never being free of my identity as a woman, because sadly out in the real world my identity as a woman is synonymous to a lot of people as identifying with a sex object in a non-consensual way that I'm not consenting to. So I distinctly remember, you know, I'm hosting this event, I'm running around, I'm doing all this stuff, and all of a sudden I stopped and I realized it's been hours in and like I haven't had any weird interactions. The people who approached me to flirt were very respectful, and everything was just it was just a feeling I had never had before, and that's what I want people to experience at our parties, is I want them to feel freedom, and I want them, when they're on the dance floor, to be able to forget, even if it's for a brief moment, about the sad realities we are facing right now in the States and in our day-to-day lives, and to be able to feel safe and free and like they can truly be themselves.
We were also all like almost naked at this party, and it was just such a safe space. Like Natalie kind of telling her experience of like no one coming up to her in like a non-consensual or like creepy, uncomfortable way is also just like even more surprising, because like all our butts were out. And it's just like, wow. For me, I would say I want people to come in to a party, particularly people who may have never been to one before, with curiosity about, whether it's like curiosity within themselves or curiosity about like, who are all these people who are like naked and running around and having the time of their life? Like, what is this event? Let me explore more. Like, I had no idea that this existed. And I think it very like akin to what Natalie was saying, leaving behind just a sense of not even just like insecurity, but I mean maybe a little bit, like leaving behind insecurities and just realizing that like you can wear that like tiny little outfit and feel completely safe and completely like yourself at one of our parties. And I think that's very, not to reuse the word, but like really freeing.
I think the important thing is knowing the music that led to these movements. So early on when I first started Sluts, or when I was part of the team that first started Sluts, I didn't have that connection to like the previous dance movements of the past. And I played a lot of just like pop and like club hits. But then as I started like learning the early stages of house and disco and why they picked the tracks that they did, was you wanted music that didn't have a lot of vocals, that if they did have vocals, they weren't lyric heavy. You wanted people to be able to escape themselves. You wanted longer tracks that transition into the others, because when you have an awkward break, it allows you time to like reflect on yourself and wonder, do I want to be here when people are staring at me? Versus if you have fluid transitions throughout the party, it gives people less time to internalize and more time to experience the moment. And like, this is an idea that I came up with. This goes back to DJs like Frankie Knuckles, Larry Levon, David Marcuso, all the legends who knew that the audience that they were performing for were a lot of people who were experiencing shame, who didn't want to have moments where they're chit-chatting or they're taken out of the experience. and they created the style of DJing that's fluidity, and then that's why 1 hour can feel like 5 hours, can feel like 7 hours. And I think that's important in curating the vibe of exploration and freedom, is to kind of create something that allows people to get lost, while also being in the reality that our party draws people from a lot of different demographics who aren't necessarily in dance music. So we try to give out little cultural, I guess, Easter eggs, how you would describe it in like movies, to make them know that they're welcome here. So like I make sure that like I always put a couple rap or R&B tracks as a way of being like, hey, shout out to my roots from like the black community, because I grew up listening to rap.
Jon McCray.
The people who started house music, Marshall Jefferson in particular. I just really love that old school sound, but also just thinking about like the origins of it. I mean, they call it house for a reason. This started in people's houses, and I think that's just such a beautiful thing when you think about anything in life, that like that's what Sluts Party was, you know? Like, we were just a group of friends who came together and were like, we're gonna start this thing. So that's what's really inspiring to me, is the idea of just following your talents and not being made to feel that you can't create something important just because you haven't quite made it yet, or you're a nobody, or da-da-da-da, you know?
So I do want to give a shout out to Donna Summers. But in general, the wider landscape of like black women in disco, because I don't think people understand how political and revolutionary those artists were, because throughout the 40s, 50s, 60s, the idea was that black women should not sing explicitly sexual tracks, because of like the stigma and history of like America hypersexualizing black women during the time of slavery. So the idea that black women reclaimed their voices literally, and were able to like moan on tracks and sing on disco tracks and make very explicitly sexual songs that they knew were going to a queer audience, another audience that was not supposed to express their sexuality in public. It's really, really cool. So just a shout out to like the Pointer Sisters. I know Chaka Khan is a little bit later. Chaka Khan, Donna Summers, that Bri's gonna talk about a little bit. Whitney Houston's a little bit after disco, but that general era. Another person I want to shout out is Sylvester, and like the idea of a gender queer person in the 70s, in the 70s. And like even in the area or time when LGBTQ communities, or more LG communities, weren't very comfortable with the idea of gender queerness and actively argued that that hurts their cause of assimilation, Sylvester was a man who didn't really identify with either gender, and even though they were assigned male at birth, not me. Even though they were assigned male at birth, they used the title the Queen of Disco, which is really fucking cool and like groundbreaking when you think about the 70s. Shout out to Madonna, who like reclaimed religious imageries and reclaimed her voice in like sexuality, and used images that oppressed her to help express her sexuality and herself in a way that was really revolutionary when you think of the 80s, and how I think like marital rape was still legal in most states around that time, or just became illegal. Women were just allowed to have a credit card, and watching somebody be so flamboyantly sexual in a way that they had autonomy over themselves is really powerful. Larry Levan, New York DJ, he played at Paradise Garage, and it was basically known as, I think, like the godfather of DJing. And he basically cultivated the idea that it's a DJ's job to curate taste and take people on a journey. He would blend disco music with gospel and soul, with electro, not early forms of like electronic music that was coming out of Europe, and like early forms of like dark wave, with like punk, and the fact that he was able to take his audience on such a journey and like build trust in his audience and allow them to like not only hear the tracks that they love, but experience new things. Redefines not only DJ, but like Paradise Garage, which was a club for black and brown queer people in New York City who didn't feel comfortable in places like Studio 54 and didn't have the class access of places like Studio 54. For them to be able to come together and redefine what a club looks like, super fucking powerful.
That's really important to what we're doing with Sluts, and particularly with like house music and disco are two. I'm not our music person on the team, but dance music resonates so deeply with me, particularly those two genres. House music, particularly being born like in Chicago, I think is just such a nice sort of like layer to what we're doing with Sluts Party and really trying to bring it to the Midwest and like a sort of like cultural revolution in a way to the Midwest that isn't really seen here. Maybe you see it in like Europe or maybe some like slightly bigger cities in the US. It's really kind of like special and almost like a reinvigoration with what was done with disco and house music throughout time.
And just to like double or expand on that point, we're not claiming that we're trying to bring rave culture to the Midwest. We know that there's a long history here, and we're just another group that's doing that. What Bri was kind of mentioning was Haus became techno in Detroit, then Detroit techno into Berlin. And in Berlin, there was this interesting combination of factors that led to the sound of techno to merge with the kink, bisexual, fluid, and like exploration and like countercultural vibes, which proliferated in Europe, where you see a lot of combination of like techno and rave music with overt sex positivity and the kinkness. And being another group that wants to create a fluid party here in the Midwest with like that combines sexuality and rave. Because like I would be so stupid if I don't talk about how gay people and queer people in general have been having like so many cool sex positive rave events. But like events where people can come into our space, maybe not being explicitly part of the queer community, but something like non-monogamous, kink, or curious, and integrate themselves into a sex-positive space. I don't think that's done as much in the Midwest as like in the coast, and especially in Europe, in cities like Amsterdam, London, and Berlin.
Jon McCray.
Everything done, sound class run, argument done from my team.
I feel like, you know, being in a new venue, we're doing this event bigger than ever. It was a little chaotic setting up. We had the whole situation where our pole was missing a part, but then, like, it really turned out to be a great night. The vibes were super good. I didn't have to, like, constantly turn away all these creepy straight men, so that was a big win. Yeah.
I feel super positive about how the night went. We had a new venue. It's like, there's a bit about how it's going to go down, but
honestly, this was an amazing first party. I mean, I couldn't have wanted better for a new venue, working with a new style, of 600-700 people that came through the door. And for us to have very minor issues and like everybody be on a good vibe, it literally felt like we were in a club in Berlin. And like that was the vibe that we were going for. We wanted this to feel like we were partying in Berlin, but this is the Midwest.
And people were telling me that. They were like, this literally feels like Berlin.
As the HBIC, as some would say, I could not ask for a better staff at a venue. Like, anytime I needed anything, they were immediately on it. I did not feel alone. It was, like, definitely a more chaotic night than I've been accustomed to with some of the other parties, but it's a new venue, some new clientele, and everyone was ready to, like, be on and help, and that was absolutely amazing. I think overall it was an successful night.
And I think that there's this idea that sex positive culture doesn't really exist in like the Midwest, and it's a coastal thing. And I think this proves that that's not true. I think that like countercultures exist everywhere, And people forgot that, like, Chicago was vital for countercultures in the 60s. I mean, like, the Black Panther movement with, like, Fred Hampton happened here in the city. Chicago had its own very little, like, hippie movement that happened. And I think that we get overlooked for, like, New York and San Francisco for cool things that happened. And I think cool stuff like this and, like, Boots and Bumps and all these small queer collectives that are showing what nightlife is supposed to be it's shaping that narrative that the Midwest does have a fun, queer, countercultural scene, especially in the rise of fascism that we're seeing happen in our country. People forget that one of the biggest protests is joy. It's happiness. The idea that a bunch of queer people come together dressed in leather, explicitly sex positive, is countercultural, is political, is protest in a way. Especially in a country that is slipping towards purity culture and heteronormativity and fascism. A bunch of queer people experiencing joy together is political, it is protest, and it's beautiful.
Yeah, and that's how, like, I feel about it. I think in these times, community is kind of lost on everyone, and that's what's allowing us to slip further away from what we're supposed to be doing. But this is radical joy, it's radical queer joy. It's just going exactly against what this regime wants us to do. And for me, I tell people, I'm like, they're gonna have to drag me out of here by my hair before I stop doing this shit. I don't care if I have to literally dig a tunnel underground to do this shit. I will keep doing it because fuck the regime. They can't scare me. ICE can't scare me. The National Guard can't scare me. Like, we are gonna keep doing this shit no matter what.
And, like, especially with these parties, we're committed to, like, the safety and, like, keeping this sacred. Like, there's nothing like this in Chicago. There's really not. Like, a queer, femme-focused, bisexual party, and I'm saying this, like, as a lesbian, right? But, like, a party like this doesn't exist, and it's an important space to, like, keep alive. And, you know, like, we get criticism saying, like, oh, you're exclusionary. Not necessarily, just act right. Like, it's all about, like, coming together and having allies. Like, without allies, we're the minority, right? So allies are really important. And, like, it's just important to keep shit like this alive. Like, it's like, meant so much to me, and I came in as, like, kind of an outsider, like, right away. And now I'm just, like, I can't imagine not being here. So, yeah.
Thank you for joining us at Center Sanctuary Sluts Party episode 12.
Thank you for joining us. We appreciate it. I hope everyone had a good time.
Quency Noir.
I'm Bestie, who's been with me since the beginning, literally since the Barbie party, and we were like the only two go-go's, and even like a 4-10 wires, several people, so we were just like carrying the crowd together. Yeah.
Thank you,
Baby. Like Natalie kind of telling her experience of like no one coming up to her in like a non-consensual or like creepy, uncomfortable way is also just like even more surprising because like
a parachute bigger. I'm not about to snap you, breaking up, break me. Why won't you break me? 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 Why won't you break me?
heavy?
Yeah, that's like just moon the camera.
Break the glass, break the speakers, break the ceiling. Break my bones, break the straight down feeling. Break the glass, break the speakers, break the ceiling. I'm about to snap, you're breaking up, break me.
So the first moment that comes to mind of just like a funny, chaotic, crazy moment is we would do a lot of midnight performances, myself and the dancers, and we hosted a party that was based off of the song Pink Pony Club. And just with it being such a sapphic song, it's Chapel Roan, I was like, I just need to like let out for this performance. I just need to do something crazy, you know? So my friend got a strap and we basically on stage like faked doing a bunch of stuff with the strap, and it was just like so much fun. I absolutely love our femme audience because they are so into the dancing and the femme on femme. So it was just like so much fun, and those pictures of just like, I mean, this girl was like doing cartwheels with a strap into my face. Like, it was just so funny.
Actually, Pink Pony Club, I have also like a little bit of it was like quite a lesbian night, really.
Mm-hmm.
There was like me personally engaged in like a little bit of like a 4-way like make out at our venue. At Pink Pony Club, it got a little rowdy at that one. Yeah.
Bri had some fun for sure.
I guess like mine was, we had a go-go dance. We have a go-go dancer named Platinum, who in the middle of one of his performances, he climbed the wall. Like there's like little edges, or not edges, like little ledges in the wall. And he climbed it like Spider-Man and started like twerking on the wall, like probably 6 feet in the air. And then the little beam broke and he like fell off the wall. He landed on his feet. He was okay. But like for the rest of the night, there was just this beam hanging off the wall from our go-go dancer. He also, like earlier in his performance, so you have to imagine this. There's like a platform and then a stairs that goes up to a second level, and then there's a ledge over the stairs. And like in the middle of his set, he runs up the stairs, jumps on the ledge that overlooks the dance floor, starts twerking on the ledge. And in my head, I'm just like, oh, because I'm DJing and I'm watching this from like right across from the DJ booth. And I'm like, this is a liability nightmare right now. Because if Platinum falls back, like he's going to land in the middle of this crowded dance floor.
He didn't fall back. He like slid like ass first down the banister and was like popping balloons off the banister like as he went down. That is a good story.
So his ass was popping balloons one by one because he started sliding back down the banister to the main platform. Yeah, that was an interesting night. A lot of great performers. Platinum was one of the best performers I've ever seen in my life.
And what made you a Because I own my body. My body is not a political playground. It's not a place for legislation. It's mine and it's my future.
Sit in the hip like whenever you tip them up, got to sit. Sit in the hip like whenever you tip them up. Sit in the hip like whenever you tip them up, got to sit.